Let me ask you something. Deep down, what are you still holding on to that's breaking your back every night? What are you gripping so tight that it's suffocating the very blessing God's trying to place in your hands? See, sometimes the weight we carry isn't the world. It's our refusal to let go of what's no longer for us. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the missed opportunities, the fear of what's next. But I need you to hear me right now. Everything you want, everything you need, everything your soul has been begging for, it shows up the moment you surrender. The moment you unclench your fists, lift your head and whisper, I trust what's meant for me will find me. That's when the miracles begin. That's when you feel peace again. Because letting go, that ain't weakness. That's the highest form of strength. That's you saying, I'm done trying to control what ain't mine to control. You want to rise? You want to heal? Then let it go. Let them go. Let yesterday go. Because when you finally release what's heavy, your hands are free to receive what's divine. You ever see someone drowning? Not waving, not screaming, just barely keeping their head above water. That's what holding on feels like when life gets heavy. You don't even realize you're going under. You just think you're surviving. You wake up every day dragging the same pain, same doubt, same disappointment through another 24 hours, like a suitcase chained to your ankle. You call it strength, but baby, that ain't strength. That's exhaustion. That's your spirit yelling for mercy while your mind tells you to push harder. The world praises the grinders, the hustlers, the ones who never let go. But what if I told you the real power lies in releasing, not in gripping tighter? Because it takes no courage to carry what's killing you, but it takes divine bravery to finally drop it and walk free. Let me break it to you. Some of the strongest people you know are the ones who walked away. Not because they were weak, but because they were tired of dying on the inside just to look alive on the outside. You think strength is enduring disrespect, tolerating chaos, or swallowing tears every night just to keep the peace? That's not strength. That's trauma dressed up in perseverance. And we've been sold this lie that if you just hold on long enough, it'll get better. But some things don't get better, they just get heavier. And if you don't know when to let go, that weight will break you. It'll break your joy. It'll steal your faith. It'll silence your soul. So no, holding on isn't always heroic. Sometimes it's just fear masquerading as loyalty to a version of life that no longer fits you. We get so good at surviving that we forget what living even feels like. We think strength is staying in the job that drains us, the relationship that wounds us, the mindset that limits us. But real strength? That's when you look at the thing you once prayed for and still decide to walk away because it no longer serves the person you're becoming. That's when you say, I deserve better, even when you don't know where better is going to come from. It takes guts to let go when your hands are still trembling from the loss, but sometimes the blessing ain't in what you're holding. It's in what you're finally willing to release. You can't reach higher ground while dragging dead weight. At some point, you've got to choose your peace over your past, your healing over your history. You see, some of us learned to call pain home. We've lived in struggle so long, we built furniture in it, decorated it, made it look pretty. So when something better shows up, we reject it. Why? Because comfort doesn't always mean peace. It just means familiarity. And when you've been hurt long enough, peace can feel foreign. You start mistaking numbness for strength. But numb ain't strong. It's just silent suffering. It's waking up every day with a fake smile and broken spirit. You're not made to just survive, you were built to thrive. And that doesn't happen when your heart is still tethered to what broke you. It happens when you stop pretending and start healing. When you stop carrying and start confronting. Letting go ain't weakness, it's the start of your resurrection. And don't get me wrong, letting go isn't easy. Nobody's saying it is. You're not just dropping a situation. You're detaching from a version of yourself that only existed in survival mode. That's hard. That's scary. Because we become addicted to what we're used to, even when it hurts. You've been that strong, loyal, hold it all together person for so long, you don't even know who you are without the burden. But hear me, your worth is not tied to how much pain you can endure. You are not more lovable because of how much you tolerated. That's not your badge of honor. That's your wake-up call. You were never meant to prove your value through suffering. Strength isn't bleeding in silence. It's standing in truth, saying, this ends with me. Some people will call you selfish for letting go. Let them talk. They weren't the ones crying at 2 a.m. They weren't the ones feeling small in your own skin. They weren't the ones battling anxiety just to get through the day. You don't owe anybody an explanation for choosing your sanity. You don't have to justify your healing. You can be kind and still walk away. You can forgive and still close the door. You can love and still say no more. That's strength. That's courage. That's wisdom born from pain. You don't have to hold on to prove your character. You already proved it by how long you endured. Now it's time to prove something else, that you believe in your right to be free. Let me say this loud for the folks in the back. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you learned. You learned what you deserve. You learned what love is supposed to feel like. You learned what peace actually sounds like when you sit in silence. So don't shame yourself for the seasons you had to endure. But don't stay stuck in them either. Growth requires separation. Elevation demands release. You can't take everybody or everything with you to the next level. And that's not cruelty, it's clarity. It's divine wisdom saying, this chapter is done. It's time to turn the page. Some lessons you only learn through heartbreak. Some strength only comes through surrender. You want your joy back? Then stop trying to rewrite the past. Stop trying to fix what was never your fault. Stop believing that suffering is your destiny. Let it go. Let them go. Let the version of you that thought you had to stay small go. You don't need to keep proving you're enough. You already are. And when you stop clutching to what broke you, you create space for what builds you. You start breathing again. You start dreaming again. You stop apologizing for your standards. And that right there, that's the kind of strength that changes lives. The kind that doesn't just survive, but rises. So if you're standing at the edge, torn between holding on and letting go, do the bold thing. Choose yourself. Choose freedom. Choose the unknown path that may scare you, but deep down you know it's right. You've spent enough time being strong for everyone else. Now it's time to be strong for you. Because the truth is, everything you want, everything you hope for, it begins when you let go. Not when you force, not when you beg, but when you release the grip and open your hands wide enough to receive what's been waiting for you all along. You ever notice how hard we fight the flow? Like we're out here trying to move rivers with our bare hands, screaming at the sky, demanding blessings to come on our schedule. We hustle, we grind, we force, and then we wonder why nothing feels right, why doors keep closing, why people keep walking. But here's the truth. Nothing meant for you will ever need to be forced. See, surrender ain't about giving up. It's about getting out of the way. It's about trusting that there's a bigger plan unfolding even when you don't see it, even when it hurts. Even when you're praying through tears, when you surrender, you align yourself with divine timing. That's when things start moving. That's when blessings come in ways you never saw coming. Because life ain't meant to be pushed. It's meant to be received. And if you're too busy trying to control it, you'll miss it. You'll miss the miracle standing at the door you were too distracted to open. You've got to be still sometimes. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the blueprint. Because the power that created this universe, it knows when, it knows how. It just needs you to stop fighting and start trusting. We live in a world that tells us to chase everything, chase success, chase people, chase validation. But what if the real power wasn't in the chase, but in the pause? What if you could finally breathe when you stop trying to outrun your own life? Because when you surrender, you're not losing control. You're handing it over to something greater. And I get it, that's scary. That's not how we were raised. We were taught to never stop moving, never stop grinding. But here's the thing. They never told you that the biggest breakthroughs don't come from running. They come from releasing. Sometimes the door doesn't open because you're trying to kick it down when all you had to do was knock and wait. Timing isn't punishment, it's preparation. And the longer you fight divine timing, the longer you delay what's already yours. When you learn to surrender, you become dangerous to fear. You stop living in lack. You stop questioning your worth. Because now you know What's for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never for you. That's the kind of faith that changes everything. Surrender doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop stressing about the results. You stop needing to know every step of the journey before you take the first one. Faith is walking when you can't see the end of the road, trusting that each step will make the next one clear. That's surrender. That's divine alignment. See, when you're so obsessed with the outcome, you miss the beauty of the process. You miss the character being built in the waiting. You miss the strength being formed in the quiet. There are seasons when nothing makes sense, when everything you thought was solid crumbles. That's when surrender becomes your anchor. You stop trying to fix everything and you start trusting the one who sees the whole picture. You may not understand why the door closed, why the person left, why the dream got delayed. But when you surrender, you know there's a reason, and you know you're still covered. Covered by grace, covered by favor, covered by purpose. Surrender isn't weakness. It's spiritual intelligence. It's knowing you don't need to see the whole path to keep walking in peace. You ever try to control a storm? Try to hold back the rain with your hands? That's what life feels like when you resist surrender. You're trying to manage everything that was never yours to carry. People, plans, outcomes. You carry them like boulders on your back and wonder why you're breaking. But here's the truth. Peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. It comes when you stop trying to be God. It comes when you realize you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to predict everything. All you've got to do is stay obedient. Stay faithful. Let the timing unfold like it's meant to. Because when you finally let go of the need to control, you make space for the unexpected blessing. The kind that sneaks up on you. The kind that whispers, I've been here, waiting for you to make room. Divine timing doesn't shout. It moves in stillness, in surrender. In moments when you stop striving long enough to hear what your spirit has been saying all along. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. I know what it's like to be in a season where nothing's moving, where it feels like your prayers are hitting the ceiling, where you're showing up, giving everything you've got, and still it's quiet. That's the valley of surrender. That's the space between planting and harvest. And that space, that's where your faith is forged. Because it's easy to believe when everything's fallen into place, but can you still believe when everything's fallen apart? You still surrender when it looks like you're being overlooked. That's when it gets real. That's when surrender stops being a concept and becomes a choice. A choice to trust that delay doesn't mean denial. A choice to believe that silence isn't abandonment. Some of the biggest blessings are hiding behind the wait, behind the no, behind the closed door. Because divine timing doesn't always look like your timing, but it's always better. Always. And the more you fight it, the more you suffer. But the moment you let go, the moment you stop wrestling and start resting, that's when peace rushes in like a river. That's when you realize surrender wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. We think surrender is passive, like it means sitting back doing nothing, but surrender is active. It takes everything in you to say, I don't have to force this. That's the power of surrender. It shifts your energy. It moves you from desperation to expectation, from anxiety to assurance. Because now you're not chasing, you're preparing, you're not begging, you're believing. That's a whole different posture. That's the kind of energy that changes atmospheres. That opens doors without you knocking. You're not out here hustling for crumbs. You're sitting at the table knowing the feast is coming. Because when you surrender, you stop trying to be the source. You remember who the source really is. And that shift in your spirit, that unlocks timing you couldn't have planned. Opportunities you never imagined. Favor you didn't earn. That's how God works. That's how purpose flows. But it starts with surrender. It starts with that quiet moment where you say, I release it. I let it go. I trust you with it all. That's not weakness. That's power. That's freedom. That's faith in motion. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is nothing, to stand still, to wait. But in that stillness, something sacred happens. You begin to hear again, not the noise of fear, not the echo of doubt, but the whisper of truth that says, you're not forgotten. Divine timing doesn't operate on your calendar. It's not tied to your age, your status, or your expectations. It moves by purpose, by alignment. And when you surrender, you stop measuring your life by how fast things happen, and you start measuring it by how faithfully you grow. The weight becomes holy, the stillness becomes sacred, and the pressure begins to lift because now you know you're not behind, you're not lacking, you're not stuck, you're being prepared. And when the time is right, when your spirit is ready, when the pieces align, you won't have to chase the moment. The moment will find you. The blessing will recognize you, not because you forced it, but because you surrendered to it. You spend so much time trying to make sense of everything, trying to connect every dot, understand every loss, explain every delay. But surrender means accepting that some things won't make sense until they do. You won't see the pattern until you step back. You won't see the purpose until you stop trying to predict it. That's where peace lives. Not in the knowing, but in the trusting. In the quiet confidence that says, even if I don't get it now, I know it's working for my good. That's surrender. That's power. Because now, you're not just reacting to life, you're flowing with it. You're walking by faith. You're no longer weighed down by the burden of control. You've handed it over. You've made space. And in that space, that's where miracles happen. That's where timing begins to move on your behalf. Not when you scream, not when you beg, but when you trust enough to let go and let life unfold the way it's meant to. With purpose, with grace, with divine precision. Surrender doesn't mean you stop showing up. It just means you stop showing up with fear. It means you walk into the room knowing that what's meant for you will not miss. That kind of energy changes everything. That's what people feel when you walk with surrendered confidence. That's what shifts rooms. You stop looking for validation in the wrong places. You stop doubting your worth based on other people's timelines. You start resting in the truth that what's aligned with your spirit is already making its way to you. You just have to keep your heart open, keep your hands unclenched, keep your faith alive. Because divine timing isn't random, it's right on schedule. And when it arrives, it won't feel forced. It'll feel like peace, like clarity, like finally you can exhale. So today, take the pressure off. Stop trying to make everything happen in your own strength. Breathe, trust, surrender. Because when you release control, you make room for the timing that's been waiting to bless you all along. Sometimes we crave closure so desperately that we sacrifice our inner peace trying to force it into existence. The unanswered questions, the unsent messages, the late night overthinking. These are the ways we try to reach for something that may never come. But here's the truth. Closure is often a fantasy. We imagine that if we could just get the other person to understand our pain or explain their actions, we'd feel better. Yet, more often than not, even when we get that final conversation, it doesn't give us the relief we expect. It might bring temporary clarity, but rarely does it resolve the emotional wound. What we don't realize is that in waiting for someone else to offer closure, we hand them the power to decide when and how we heal. That's not peace, it's imprisonment. Choosing to let go without getting answers, without hearing an apology, without seeing regret in their eyes, that's real power. That's reclaiming control over your emotional well-being. You don't need closure from others to validate your pain or to make your healing legitimate. The silence you get may be loud, but your peace can be louder. It's the sound of you choosing yourself above the chaos. When you prioritize your peace over closure, you're not giving up. You're letting go of what no longer serves your growth. Closure can feel like the missing piece, but often it's a trap disguised as healing. We replay memories, reanalyze conversations, and dwell in the past because we think understanding it will set us free. But some people leave your life not to teach you a lesson through explanation, but by showing you who they are through their absence. And that is enough. You don't need a final dialogue to close the chapter. Sometimes the door slams shut without warning and you're left in the wreckage. Yet in that silence is a deeper truth. Your peace is not dependent on their words. It's built on your choice to move forward despite the ache. It's choosing to no longer wait on someone who chose not to stay. Healing begins not with answers, but with acceptance. You may never know why they did what they did, but you know what you felt, and you know what you deserve. That knowing is more powerful than any apology. There is something sacred about walking away without bitterness, without revenge, without needing to be understood. It's not weakness, it's maturity, it's grace. Closure implies that there's an ending we can package neatly and label as complete, but life is rarely that tidy. Emotions linger, memories echo, and questions haunt us long after someone exits our lives. And that's okay. You don't need to tie everything into a bow to be okay. Not every story ends with a conversation or a resolution. Sometimes it ends in silence, in confusion, or even in betrayal. But your healing isn't bound to that ending. It begins where you choose to no longer let it control you. You find your peace when you stop chasing clarity from people who thrive on chaos. You protect your energy when you no longer beg people to see your worth. And in that stillness, you rediscover yourself. Not the broken version begging for closure, but the powerful soul reclaiming their joy without it. Choosing peace is not pretending it didn't hurt. It's saying it hurt, but it will not define me. It's a quiet strength, and it changes everything. Sometimes we stay emotionally tied to people long after they've exited our lives because we believe closure will sever that connection. We think that one more conversation will help us move on, that if we hear them say, "I'm sorry," we'll finally be free. But in truth, every time we reach back for closure, we risk reopening wounds. We extend our pain instead of ending it. Peace doesn't come from rehashing what's already broken. It comes from deciding it doesn't deserve space in your present. You do not need their permission to heal. You do not need their explanation to grow. You are allowed to walk away from someone who hurt you without seeking their understanding. Because peace is not something they give you, it's something you claim for yourself. That means choosing not to respond, not to chase, not to linger in spaces where your value was overlooked. Letting go is not forgetting, it's remembering without suffering. It's forgiving yourself for holding on so long. Closure is a luxury not everyone will give you. Peace, however, is a necessity you owe yourself, so choose it again and again, even when the questions remain. There's a difference between wanting closure and needing peace, and many of us confuse the two. We think closure will lead to peace, but that's rarely how it works. More often, closure becomes another round of emotional chess. Another wound reopened, another expectation unmet. The truth is, not every person is capable of giving you honest closure, especially those who never respected your heart in the first place. Why trust them to help you heal what they broke? Your peace must become more important than your curiosity. Let your healing no longer be a negotiation with someone who already proved they don't know how to care for you. Instead, take all that energy and pour it into rebuilding yourself. Use the silence they left to listen to your soul. You deserve peace. Not because you got all the answers, but because you survived what tried to break you. You walked through fire, and you're still standing. And that is more powerful than any explanation could ever be. Sometimes peace is the realization that they're not worth another thought, another tear, or another word. You are. And your peace is sacred. People often say, "I just want closure," as if it's a simple conversation, but it rarely is. Closure isn't just about understanding, it's about emotions, expectations, and the hope that somehow the past can be rewritten to hurt a little less. But the past doesn't change. And the person who hurt you isn't always capable of giving you what you need now. That's why your peace is more valuable than closure. It's not reliant on anyone else. It's you choosing to breathe again, to sleep again, to laugh again, without needing a specific sentence to be said or a certain truth to be acknowledged. Some things don't get fixed. Some wounds heal not because they were mended by others, but because you stopped picking at them. You stopped letting the hurt speak louder than your self-worth. You let the pain teach you, then released it. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks. It often arrives in the quiet of a decision you make alone, that you will no longer wait for someone else to soothe what they shattered. You will be your own comfort, your own clarity, your own closure. Letting go without closure is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's also one of the most liberating, because it means you finally accepted that some people will never be able to meet you where you are. They'll never give you the closure you crave, and you've stopped trying to make them. That's not defeat. It's freedom. It's you taking your power back. You stop being the victim of their silence and become the author of your own healing. You stop rereading the story and start writing a new one. One where peace isn't a prize someone else has to hand you, but a decision you make every day. To wake up and choose not to carry the weight of unanswered questions. To go to sleep without playing old conversations in your head. To smile without needing validation from the person who once made you cry. That's peace. And it's so much more valuable than any closure they could offer, because peace doesn't come and go with them. It stays with you. It grows with you, and it becomes the foundation for every healthy decision you make moving forward. Closure often feels like a door we need someone else to shut for us. But waiting for someone who hurt you to also heal you is asking for more pain. It keeps you stuck. Every time you wait for that text, that call, that apology, you pause your own life. You keep the wound open. But peace doesn't wait. It arrives when you decide that your well-being matters more than their explanation. It comes when you stop seeking justice in broken people. It's in the quiet resolve that says, I may never get what I deserved from you, but I will give it to myself. It's in choosing silence over chaos, distance over drama, and healing over history. That doesn't mean it won't hurt. It will, but it also means you're strong enough to hurt and still choose what's best for you. You can miss someone and still not want them back. You can love what you had and still know it's time to let go. Peace is making space for what aligns with your soul. And often, it begins the moment you stop waiting for someone else to say the right thing. You deserve peace more than you deserve closure, because peace is what sustains you. It's what carries you through the nights when memories threaten to pull you under. It's what helps you breathe when the pain resurfaces out of nowhere. Closure may offer understanding, but peace offers life. It's what allows your heart to soften instead of harden. It teaches you to trust again, not because the past made sense, but because you chose to rise above it. That's where true strength lies. Not in the ability to get the last word, but in the courage to let silence be enough. Not in being understood by them, but in understanding yourself so deeply that their absence no longer defines you. You are not broken because someone didn't give you closure. You are healing because you chose not to need it. You chose to protect your peace. You chose yourself, and that will always be enough. You are allowed to move forward without looking back. You are allowed to thrive without explanation. Your peace is your power, and no one can take it unless you hand it to them. Keep it. Guard it. It's worth everything. Growth isn't always about adding more into your life. Sometimes it's about making space. It's about recognizing that not everything or everyone you hold on to is meant to come with you into the next chapter. We often cling to familiarity because it feels safe, even when it stifles us. But growth demands room to breathe, and that means letting go. Letting go of relationships that drain us, habits that no longer serve us, beliefs that limit us. It means being brave enough to release what once felt necessary but now feels heavy. You can't rise while holding on to what weighs you down. This doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean it wasn't real. It means you've outgrown it, and that's okay. We grow out of people, situations, and even versions of ourselves. Trying to hold on to everything only creates emotional clutter. It leaves no room for new beginnings, for peace, for transformation. The space you create when you let go is sacred. It's uncomfortable at first because emptiness feels unfamiliar, but that emptiness is fertile ground. It's where healing happens. It's where clarity comes. So don't fear the release. Trust that making room is not loss. It's preparation for the next version of you. We spend so much time trying to preserve what we think we need that we don't realize we're suffocating our own evolution. Holding on to something that no longer aligns with who you're becoming is like trying to run a marathon with weights strapped to your ankles. Eventually, it slows you down and you lose momentum. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you are strong enough to recognize that growth is more important than comfort. You can love something deeply and still acknowledge that it no longer fits into your life. That's not disloyalty to the past. It's commitment to your future. There is bravery in choosing yourself over what's familiar. There is power in releasing what you once prayed to keep. When you let go, you give yourself permission to expand. You open the door for new connections, new lessons, and new energy. It's not about replacing what was lost. It's about rediscovering what you've made room for. When you declutter your life emotionally and mentally, you create space for joy. You make space for peace. You grow not by adding more noise, but by quieting what no longer serves you. That's how growth begins. In the quiet space left behind after release, Sometimes we hold on out of fear, fear that letting go means we'll be left with nothing. But that fear is a lie. You are never empty after release, you are open. And there's a massive difference. Empty feels like something's missing, but open means something can come in. The truth is, the longer you cling to something that's not meant for you, the more you delay what is. Life is constantly trying to give you better, but it won't force its way in if your hands are full of what you should have let go of long ago. You can't grow in a space that's already crowded with doubt, with regret, with expired connections. Letting go is a courageous act of trust. Trust that what's meant for you will find you. Trust that your future will thank you for the space you're making today. Yes, the in-between hurts. That silence after release can feel loud and uncomfortable, but it's not punishment, it's preparation. Growth needs that space to take root. And in time, you'll realize that what you let go of was never greater than what was waiting to take its place. So breathe, release, make room. Your next chapter is waiting for space. It's easy to romanticize what we've outgrown. We look back at the memories, the history, the attachment, and we start convincing ourselves to stay. But staying in a place that no longer nourishes your spirit is a slow erosion of self. Just because something was beautiful once doesn't mean it still belongs in your life. Growth demands honesty. Honesty about what still inspires you, what still aligns, and what still feels true. It requires discernment. The people and patterns you once clung to may have served a purpose then, but not all of them are meant to go the distance. If you truly want to evolve, you have to be willing to shed the layers that don't fit anymore. That means walking away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. It means creating distance, not to punish, but to protect your own peace. The space you make by letting go doesn't mean loneliness. It means opportunity. Opportunity for deeper connection with yourself. Opportunity for better alignment with the life you're building. When you stop watering dead plants, you start to notice new seeds sprouting around you. And that's the point. Growth doesn't ask you to cling, it asks you to release and trust the bloom that follows. Letting go can feel like grief because in many ways it is. You're grieving the version of yourself that clung to that job, that person, that belief. You're mourning the comfort of familiarity, even when you know it's no longer right for you. But what's beautiful about this kind of grief is that it creates space for rebirth, for renewal. It's not an end, it's a transition, one you must walk through with faith. Holding on too tightly to what was only delays what's trying to unfold. You deserve more than what you've been settling for, and deep down, you know that. You wouldn't be reading these words if something inside you wasn't already reaching for more. So listen to that voice, the one that says, there's something better ahead. It's guiding you toward expansion. You're not being asked to forget your past. You're being invited to rise beyond it. The space you're creating now will not stay empty forever. It will be filled with growth, with peace, with purpose. But only if you're willing to let go of what's taking up too much room. That's how you evolve. That's how you begin again, with space. One of the most painful truths we learn is that not everyone grows with us. Some people were only meant to walk a portion of our journey, not the entire path. And that's hard to accept. But refusing to let go of those who no longer align with your direction doesn't keep them close. It keeps you stuck. You don't have to hate them. You don't even have to be angry. Sometimes letting go is simply understanding that your growth now requires different surroundings, different energy. You can love people deeply and still choose distance. You can honor what they gave you and still move forward. This isn't coldness, self-respect. You're allowed to outgrow people, places, and perspectives. You're allowed to want more for yourself, and by making space, you send a powerful message to the universe. I am ready for what's next. Clinging to the old won't make it new again. All it does is delay the new from arriving. And the more space you create, the more clearly you begin to see yourself. You recognize what you need, what you want, and what you deserve. That clarity is a gift, and it only comes when you're brave enough to let go. When we avoid letting go, we often think we're avoiding pain, but in reality, we're prolonging it. The slow ache of staying in something that doesn't serve us is far more damaging than the short sting of release. Growth requires you to confront what's been holding you back, not just externally, but internally. It's about shedding not only people and places, but patterns. The thought cycles that tell you you're not enough, the habits that keep you stagnant, the fears that talk you out of your potential. All of it must be released if you want to grow. You can't evolve in the same environment that hurt you. You can't thrive when you're constantly triggered. Letting go is your soul's way of creating new soil. It's the pulling up of roots so you can be planted where you'll actually bloom. The process might be messy, it might feel raw, but it's necessary. Because your future cannot grow where there's no room for it. The space you make today is the foundation for the life you'll thank yourself for tomorrow. So release the fear. Release the guilt. Make space, not just outside of you, but within. That's where real growth begins. Growth is a shedding process. It's unglamorous, often quiet and deeply personal. You might not get applause for letting go, and the world may not even notice your transformation at first, but you will. You'll notice it in the way your spirit feels lighter, in the way you breathe easier, in how you no longer carry what used to weigh you down. You'll feel the shift, and eventually others will too. Not because you told them, but because your energy will be different. That's the beauty of creating space. It's not about replacing what you let go of. It's about allowing yourself the room to evolve into someone who no longer needs what once seemed essential. Letting go teaches you that you are your own anchor. You are your own peace. And you don't have to hold on to things to prove loyalty or strength. True strength is in the release. True peace is in the space that follows. It's where healing happens. It's where purpose unfolds. And most importantly, it's where you begin to live not from attachment, but from intention. You stop reacting and start creating. That's growth. Not just changing your circumstances, but becoming someone who's no longer afraid of space. Loss has a way of shaking us to our core, of making us question everything we thought we understood about life, about ourselves, about what's meant to stay. But what if the loss isn't punishment? What if it's permission? What if the thing you lost was never really yours to hold on to? We often believe that because we felt something deeply or invested time into it, it should have been permanent. But life doesn't operate by our emotional contracts. Some things arrive to teach, to shape, to stretch us, and then they leave. Not because we failed, not because we weren't enough, but because their role in our story had an expiration date. The pain of loss is real, but so is the truth that some things must leave in order for us to grow. Trusting the loss means accepting that letting go is part of the journey, not a detour from it. It means recognizing that release is not the enemy of love. Sometimes it's the evidence of it. Because love, true love, knows when to hold on and when to step back. Trusting the loss doesn't erase the ache, but it gives the ache meaning. And when pain has meaning, it can lead to transformation. The hardest losses are the ones we didn't see coming. The ones we thought we were building our lives around. A friendship we thought would last forever. A relationship we imagined growing old in. A dream job we poured our identity into. When those are taken, the emptiness feels unbearable. But slowly and sometimes silently, life begins to rebuild us. It doesn't give back what was taken. It gives us something different. Sometimes better, sometimes just different. But always aligned with who we're becoming. The loss, though brutal, was not a mistake. It was a moment of redirection. Of course you wanted it to stay. Of course it felt like it belonged. But if it was truly meant for you, it would have remained. That's the quiet truth we often resist. We think that fighting to keep something proves our love. But the deeper wisdom is knowing when to surrender. Trusting the loss is about trusting the timing. Trusting that your story isn't over just because a chapter ended abruptly. Even in the moments you feel abandoned, you are being rerouted. Even in the moments that break you, you are being built. Sometimes the loss is what saves you from a life that was too small for your soul. We often assign our worth to what we can hold on to. If they stayed, we must be worthy. If they left, we must not be. But this is a lie that keeps us chained to things not meant for us. Just because something slipped through your fingers doesn't mean you were unworthy of it. It means it wasn't rooted deeply enough to stay. And that's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of alignment. Some people and things were never meant to be yours eternally. They were meant to mirror something, teach something, awaken something, and when their purpose is fulfilled, life removes them. Not as punishment, but as protection, as clarity. It's hard to trust a loss that feels cruel. But look closer. Were you shrinking in that space? Were you betraying parts of yourself to keep it? Were you silencing your truth just to maintain the illusion of harmony? Sometimes the loss is the only way we wake up. We learn who we are without what we thought we needed. We stand alone and realize we're still standing. That's where resilience is born, not in what we keep, but in what we survive. And you, right now, are surviving what once felt impossible to lose. There's a sacredness in letting go of what was never yours to keep. It's a quiet revolution, a decision not to fight the current of life, but to float with it. That doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means you're honoring the truth that clinging doesn't create security. It only deepens suffering. When we try to force something to stay, we deny ourselves the dignity of transformation. We deny ourselves the opportunity to discover what fits more deeply, what resonates more truthfully, what aligns more naturally. Trusting the loss invites us into trust itself, not just in the event, but in the unfolding. It says, I don't understand this yet, but I choose to believe it's working for me. It's an act of courage to release what you love, especially when it doesn't want to be released. But it's also an act of faith. Faith that you don't have to beg to keep what's meant for you. Faith that life doesn't take without also giving. It may not come in the form you expect. It may not look like compensation, but something new always follows. And it requires empty hands to receive. Let them be empty. Let the loss create space. The mind will replay the loss on repeat. It will try to make sense of it, to rewrite the ending, to find the loophole that could have changed everything. But healing begins the moment you stop trying to edit the past and start accepting the wisdom it left behind. Trusting the loss means stepping out of analysis and into allowance. It means not needing to justify why something ended in order to let it go. Some endings won't come with closure. Some goodbyes won't come with grace. And that's okay. You can still choose peace. You can still say, even though it hurt, I'm choosing to believe it was right. That's how you reclaim your power. From the story, from the pain, from the loss itself. You get to decide what this loss means to you. You get to decide whether it's a source of bitterness or a seed of growth. And when you choose growth, you set yourself free. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. You matter more than staying stuck in what broke you. You matter more than waiting on explanations that may never come. You're not here to prove why you deserved better. You're here to become someone who no longer accepts less. Loss teaches us who we are in the absence of what we loved. It exposes the places we've attached our identity to things beyond our control. When we lose something, we're not just grieving the presence, we're grieving the parts of ourselves that felt tied to it. And that's why it feels so disorienting. But with that disorientation comes a powerful opportunity to rebuild, to redefine, to remember that your worth isn't connected to what stayed. It's revealed by how you rise after what left. Trusting the loss means trusting yourself. Trusting that even in heartbreak, you are whole. Trusting that even in the quiet, something sacred is unfolding. You are not the absence of what walked away. You are the space that held it. You are the heart that dared to love. And that love is not lost just because the person or dream is. It lives in you. It shaped you. And now it frees you. Because when you trust the loss, you stop needing to understand it in order to honor it. You let it be a part of your story without letting it define your future. That's not forgetting. That's forgiveness. And forgiveness is where freedom begins. Sometimes we confuse attachment with destiny. We believe the intensity of a connection or the length of time we held on to something is proof that it was ours forever. But not everything intense is meant to last. Not everything that feels powerful is sustainable. And just because something touched you deeply doesn't mean it was meant to stay permanently. Trusting the loss requires you to separate emotion from truth. You can feel it deeply and still let it go. You can mourn it completely and still know it's not yours to reclaim. This is not about becoming numb. It's about becoming wise. It's about recognizing that the soul has a compass. And sometimes it points us away from the very things we thought we couldn't live without. Not because we're being punished, but because we're being prepared. Prepared for alignment, prepared for expansion, prepared for love that doesn't leave, peace that doesn't break, purpose that doesn't waver. And all of that requires space. All of that requires trust. So when you feel the sting of loss, take a breath. Remember, just because it's gone doesn't mean it failed. Just because it ended doesn't mean it wasn't beautiful. Let the beauty live. Let the loss be sacred. There will come a moment when the pain begins to lift, when the questions grow quiet, when the grip loosens, and you feel yourself stepping into a softer space. That moment doesn't come because you forced yourself to move on. It comes because you honored the loss. You gave it breath. You gave it meaning. And in doing so, you freed yourself from it. Trusting the loss doesn't mean erasing it from your heart. It means recognizing it shaped you and choosing to keep going anyway. It means understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say goodbye, not just to the person, the job, or the dream, but to the version of yourself who couldn't imagine life without them. That's where your power returns. That's where healing begins. You realize you don't need to hold on in order to remember. You don't need to understand everything in order to make peace with it. You just need to trust that what left did so because it was never yours to keep. And what's meant for you, it won't need to be held tightly. It will choose to stay. Not because you begged it to, but because it belongs, just like you do. We all crave transformation. We all want the rising, the breakthrough, the moment when the light breaks through the dark and we step into who we were always meant to become. But what most people don't realize is that resurrection doesn't begin with power. It begins with surrender. It begins with a release. The moment you unclench your hands from the thing you've been gripping for far too long is the same moment life can finally flow again. You can't rise while you're still chained to what broke you. You can't ascend while your arms are wrapped around the past. Release isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's not failure. Release is the courage to say, this no longer serves me. It's the bravery to stand in the truth that holding on is hurting you more than letting go ever will. The truth is, we often think we're waiting on life to change, waiting on circumstances to shift. But life is waiting on us to loosen our grip, waiting on us to stop dragging the weight of dead seasons into new beginnings. The resurrection you've been praying for starts the moment you decide that you don't need what you thought you did. You only need truth. And truth always begins with release. The most powerful transformations don't happen overnight. They begin in quiet moments when no one is watching. When you're alone in your room, tired of pretending, tired of trying to force what no longer fits. That's when the voice of your soul gets louder. That's when the whisper becomes a roar. Let it go. Maybe it's a relationship that's run its course. Maybe it's an identity you've outgrown. Maybe it's a dream that once gave you life, but now only leaves you empty. Whatever it is, the hardest part is not the rising. It's the releasing. Because we attach so much of our safety to what's familiar, even when what's familiar is breaking us. We convince ourselves we'll fall apart without it, but here's the truth you need to hear. You're not falling apart. You're being reassembled, and you can't be rebuilt while you're still holding the pieces of something that was never meant to last. Release makes room for the new. Release makes space for resurrection. You won't see it right away. It won't come with fireworks. But deep inside, your soul will exhale, your spirit will stretch, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the light will return. That is the beginning of everything. And it starts the moment you finally let go. We think of resurrection as a dramatic return to life, but most of the time it begins as a whisper. I can't keep doing this. That whisper is sacred. It's not weakness, it's awareness. It's the soul's way of waking you up from a life you've outgrown. And before anything can rise, something has to fall away. That's the part no one teaches us. We're told to chase the breakthrough, to pursue the light. But we're not taught that the light only shines after the release. Something in you must be surrendered before something greater can take its place. This isn't about discarding your past. It's about releasing your grip on it. It's about choosing truth over familiarity. There is no resurrection without release. Even the seed must break before it blooms. Even the night must end before morning begins. You've carried this weight long enough. The guilt, the shame, the illusion of control. It's time to release it, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Not because you failed, but because you've outgrown the story. The real resurrection isn't in pretending you're okay, it's in honoring what needs to be released so something new can finally rise. That's not giving up, that's growing up. Release requires trust. Trust that what you're letting go of wasn't meant to last. Trust that what's waiting for you is better than what you're leaving behind. And that kind of trust doesn't come easy. It's forged in fire, in heartbreak, in the silence of nights where all you can do is whisper, I don't know what's next, but I'm willing. That willingness, that surrender is the birthplace of transformation. You don't have to know what's coming. You just have to stop clinging to what's already gone. You can't resurrect while you're still reaching for what buried you. You can't heal while you're still picking at the wound. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about forgiving yourself for holding on so long. It's about realizing that some parts of your story are only meant to carry you to a certain point, and now it's time to walk forward. Barefoot, bruised, but free. That's the paradox of resurrection. You rise higher when you lay your pride down. You find strength when you stop pretending you're strong. The moment you release the need to control, to know, to fix everything, that's when life has room to move. That's when grace rushes in. And grace always meets you where surrender begins. There's a reason the word release feels so raw. It asks you to trust what you cannot yet see. It asks you to drop the mask, the weight, the story you've been telling yourself just to survive. But release is also a return to your truest self, the one beneath all the pretending, the one who knows that no amount of force can create what is divinely timed. We exhaust ourselves trying to control outcomes, to rewrite endings that were never ours to begin with. But resurrection doesn't come through resistance, it comes through flow. Through surrender. Through the moment you stop trying to resurrect something that's already dead and instead allow yourself to be transformed. That's the key. You're not resurrecting the past. You're resurrecting you. The version of you that's been buried under expectation, under fear, under the belief that you have to do it all alone. You don't. You never did. The release is not abandonment, it's alignment. It's you returning to your center, your power, your truth. That's what gives birth to the rising. That's what shakes the ground beneath old patterns. When you release, you don't lose yourself, you remember yourself. And that is always the first miracle. We often believe that we need everything figured out before we can begin again, that we need clarity, certainty, a perfect plan. But resurrection doesn't wait for your plan. It waits for your release. It waits for the moment you say, I'm done holding on to what's holding me back. You don't need a map to rise. You need willingness. The willingness to let life reconfigure what you thought you needed. The willingness to trade control for trust. The willingness to believe that your future doesn't depend on fixing your past. It depends on releasing it. The truth is, you are not the pain that happened to you. You are not the identity you formed around survival. You are not the story that said you're not enough. You are the one who gets to choose differently. Who gets to rise. But first, you must release. Release the belief that healing has to be linear. Release the idea that transformation has to look like progress. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like breaking down before breaking through. And that's okay. That's holy. That's real. When you choose to release, you're not stepping backward, you're stepping inward. And inward is where all true resurrection begins. Some seasons feel like they're designed to break you, but what if they're actually building you? What if the pain you're resisting is actually preparing you? That heartbreak, that disappointment, that door that slammed shut, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something deeper. But only if you allow it to be. Only if you stop asking why it happened and start asking what it's making room for. Release is the invitation to stop living in reaction and start living in intent. You no longer need to carry every broken piece just to prove you survived. Survival isn't your only story. Resurrection is. And it begins when you stop trying to carry it all and start trusting that the letting go is part of the becoming. Your resurrection won't come in the form of everything going right. It will come when you decide to be right with yourself. When you choose peace over proving. When you let go of needing validation to start over. That's when it shifts. That's when life breathes back into you. But you've got to be brave enough to release. To trust that even in the dark, something sacred is being born. Even in the breaking, something holy is rising. And that something is you. The truth is, you can't skip the release and still expect the resurrection. You can't cling to the old and still claim the new. That's the spiritual law of transformation. Something must be laid down in order for something greater to rise up. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's resentment, maybe it's the belief that you're not worthy of more. Whatever it is, it cannot go where you're headed. It cannot breathe in the atmosphere of your resurrection. You've spent enough time surviving. Now it's time to live. But to live, you have to release. And releasing isn't a one-time event. It's a practice. A daily decision to say, I choose trust. I choose hope. I choose freedom over fear. Every time you release, you rise a little more. Every time you surrender, you return to yourself. This is what it means to be reborn, not to become someone new, but to finally be who you were always meant to be. That person has been waiting beneath the pain, beneath the armor, beneath the stories. And now, as you release what no longer fits, she rises. He rises. You rise. And it all begins with one brave decision: to let go. Because release is the first step toward resurrection. Always. Everything you've gone through, every struggle, every moment of holding on, and every silent battle has led you to this truth. The first act of true transformation is release. It is not the loud declaration of change that starts your resurrection. It's the quiet, courageous moment you decide to let go. Let go of the weight you've carried, the roles you've outgrown, the relationships that drain rather than nourish, and the beliefs that whisper you're not enough. It takes enormous strength to unclench your grip from the things that feel familiar, even when they no longer serve you. But this strength is exactly what opens the door to the life you've been longing to live. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the whole path ahead. All you need is the willingness to surrender what's already slipping through your fingers. That surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the deepest kind of trust. The kind that says, even if I don't know what's next, I believe something greater is coming. That belief is the spark of resurrection. Because when you make space by releasing the clutter, the fear, the past, you invite the sacred into your life. You make room for clarity, for strength, for joy that is not manufactured but rooted, for peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. That is the miracle of letting go. It's not about escaping pain. It's about transmuting it. It's about refusing to stay stuck in the old when your soul is begging for the new. When you release, you don't erase your past. You honor it for what it taught you, and you lovingly place it behind you. You stop trying to revive what has run its course and start living from a place of truth. That truth, that who you are becoming is more important than what you are leaving behind, is the foundation of your rising. Release doesn't come with a promise that it won't hurt. It comes with a promise that it will heal. And healing isn't always immediate, but it's always sacred. Your courage to release is your permission slip to live again. Not just exist, but truly live. Breathe, become, be free. So wherever you are right now, whether on the edge of release or in the thick of your rising, remember, you are not alone. The process is messy, but it is holy. And it always leads somewhere beautiful if you dare to trust it. Let go of what's heavy. Trust what's waiting. And walk forward with your head high and your heart open. Resurrection is not reserved for the miraculous few. It's for all of us who choose to let go so we can rise again. Thank you for spending this time reflecting on your journey. May you find the strength to release, the courage to rise, and the peace that follows. God bless you. Stay strong and keep walking forward.